Hi everyone, welcome to this EBS webinar. I'm Gavin Wrigley, Head of Education for European Bartender School. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and I'm going to talk about smoke and ice, some stuff that we learn on the Advanced Bartender course. So my job in European Bartender School as the Head of Education is to make sure that all of our teachers are teaching to the absolute highest level, make sure our curriculum is up to date on all of our courses, develop new courses, and just generally keep up with the bartending industry and make sure that European Bartender School is doing as best as it possibly can. So today I want to talk a little bit about the Advanced Bartender course. I'm going to show you guys some stuff that we learn on the Advanced Bartender course just to give you a little bit of a glimpse into what we do here. So I'm going to talk about smoke and ice specifically because they're super cool things to talk about. And I've got some ice here that I've had sat down here for like an hour. So first of all, why have I got a big block of ice and why am I not just using regular cubed ice like this? So first of all, a big block of ice like this is very hard, very transparent, so you can see all the way through it. Unlike sometimes when you get a block of ice like this and it's a little bit cloudy, the reason that that's a good thing, is this is very hard. This is solid all the way through. The reason this is cloudy is it's got little bubbles and little bits of impurity. Now that's not a terrible thing, like that's what happens. But what we've done with this ice is we've used directional freezing, which sounds pretty technical, but I'll explain it fairly simply, I think. Usually when ice freezes, it freezes from the outside. When you take an ice cube tray, you put it in the freezer, what happens, because it's freezing from all sides at the same time, the outside freezes first, and then it freezes inwards and inwards and inwards until finally the center of the ice cube freezes. What happens there is the bubbles and the impurities and the minerals that are in the water that you're freezing, they get pushed to the middle, and that means they've got nowhere to go when they reach the middle and they get frozen into the ice, which means you've actually got in the middle of your ice all these tiny little bubbles and you've got little bits of minerals and stuff, and it's all stuck in the middle of the ice because it has nowhere to escape to. When we use directional freezing, we freeze from the top downwards. That means that the top of the ice freezes and then it goes down and down and down and down and down, which means all of those bubbles and impurities, they get pushed down to the bottom, and that gives you the option to cut them off. So with this, we freeze from the top down, and then when you take the block out from what you're freezing it in, you end up with a cloudy bit at the bottom and the top bit is completely clear. Then we cut off the cloudy bit and we're left with just the best part of the ice. Now, why is that good? Transparent ice is super hard and it melts much slower, like a lot slower, significantly slower than cloudy ice, because surface area, if you remember high school science, surface area increases the rate of a reaction. So when air touches the cloudy parts of the ice, it's able to get into all these little holes and crevices and it melts the ice very fast, which means your drink gets watery quite quickly. When you use hard ice like this has been sat down here for an hour already, just this block of ice, and not much has happened. If I did that with a piece of cloudy ice, it'd be gone. So a nice big piece of solid clear ice is going to save our drinks for a lot longer, and that's great for drinks like old fashions that have a very small margin for error when it comes to dilution. If you drink an old fashioned or a very spirit forward drink, as we'd call it, you want it to be perfect dilution, which means when you serve it, you want it to taste the same when you serve it as it does in 10 minutes when you're still drinking it. So it's very handy for that. Also, it means we can shape it in any shape we want. So I can take this and I can cut it down and I can match exactly my glassware. So I can cut long spears that go into tall glasses. I can cut big cubes that go into low ball glasses. I can even try cut spheres or balls. So let's talk a little bit about the history of ice. The history of ice doesn't sound like such a great history, but for me, I love it. So if we think about the history of ice, the history of bartending, the history of cocktail culture, for me, the history of cocktails changes in like early 1800s. Let's call it like early 1800s. I'm not going to get specific on dates. Now, what happens in the early 1800s? We start actually being able to put ice in drinks at the right time is the key thing, because before the 1800s, the only way we could really get ice is from frozen lakes, and even into the 1800s, but we'll get onto that. Now, obviously, if you're next to a frozen lake, it's probably pretty cold outside, and you generally don't want an icy drink. But if it's the middle of summer and you're in the streets of New York City and it's 38 degrees outside, you would love an icy drink. But before the 1800s, you couldn't get it because there was no ice machines, there was no refrigeration, there was no way to make ice from water. It just didn't happen. So the way that we started making ice, and it was just one guy, a guy called Frederick Tudor, decided, because he lived in northern Boston and they used to cut ice from frozen lakes, he had this idea, like, I'm gonna save ice all summer long in these insulated houses, and not only that, but I'm gonna ship it around the world. I'm gonna take it to hot places where they would love to have ice in their drinks. And he did this, and he tried and failed multiple times. It almost made him go bankrupt. He was bringing ice to the Caribbean, and they were taking it home thinking it was gonna last forever, and then coming back and complaining the next day when it melted. But he kept going and he kept going, and eventually he had this shipping company. He had built big insulated ships, and he was delivering ice, and he was keeping it on ships for 9 months at a time and delivering it to India. And we had the English colonizers in India drinking gin tonics with ice in summer, and they were loving it. And ice was getting branded, and people talked about, what lake does your ice come from? And Queen Victoria was drinking drinks with ice in. And of course, he used to go to bars in New York City in summer, and he would walk up and he would give you a block of ice to the bartender and say, hey, try your drinks with some of this ice in the middle of summer where there's no air conditioning. People would come into that bar, and if you go into a bar and this bar's got ice and the bar next door has no ice, you're guaranteed next week this bar's gonna have ice. And then he comes back the next week and he's like, okay, this one's not free anymore. So he built a massive business cutting ice from frozen lakes and delivering it all over the world. And then obviously more companies popped up and started selling ice, and they used to go to bars and do shows and teach people how to use it. And then that's where it all started picking up, and we start getting shaken drinks and stirred drinks and different ways to prepare drinks with ice. But a cool drink in the summer was a massive turning point. So that's why I think ice is such an important thing, not just for drinks themselves. It's the most important the most important ingredient in all drinks, but it's also one of the most important points in history for cocktails, I think. So let's get to it. We're gonna start with an historical sort of method of carving ice, because back in the day, you would have had a block of ice on the front of the bar or the back of the bar, and you would have carved it ready to go. And bartenders were ice technicians as well, if you want to call it that. Let's start with making clear ice. So making clear ice, you can either buy it from an ice supplier, and they would use a big machine called a Kleinbell, which directionally freezes and makes sure that all of the impurities leave, and they have a little pump on the bottom that keeps everything moving, and then they just pull out these big clear blocks of ice. But you can also try it yourself at home, and the way we do that is we need to insulate the sides and the bottom so that it freezes from one direction to the other. So the way that we would do that is, if you take a regular picnic cooler that's an insulated box, the kind of thing that you would put beers in and keep them cold, you take the lid off, you fill it up with water. Let's say it doesn't need to be super purified water, but if you use hot water, it can sometimes be good. It depends on what the tap water is like where you're from. But yeah, if it freezes from the top down, you take that thing, you put it in the freezer with the lid off, and it's gonna freeze from the top down because the sides are insulated. You let it freeze all the way, and then you pop it out, and what you'll notice is you've got clear ice at the top and cloudy ice at the bottom. Then you can take something like this and you can carve off the bottom. And then you're gonna end up with something like this. And you can also time it just right so that you pull it out when the bottom is still water, so it hasn't frozen yet. Up to you which way you wanna do it. Usually I'm doing other things, so I just come back and chop the bottom off, easy. Then the next thing that you want to do after you've taken that bottom bit off is you need to temper the ice. Now, when we say temper the ice, what we mean is just let it come to room temperature a little bit. So this is why this was taken out of the freezer like an hour ago, or yeah, it was about an hour ago. Maybe a bit longer even, maybe even an hour and a half. Now, what's happened since it's come out of the freezer, it's all of the frost on the outside has disappeared. That frost is actually a reaction between the air and the frozen water, and it's creating like bits of snow and frost on the outside. And it also makes the ice very brittle, which means when I start to work with it, it can break and it can chip and it can do things that I don't want it to do. Now it's a little bit softer, it's kind of wet on the outside, and when I come to carve it and when I do little chops on it, it's gonna behave in a more predictable way than it would if I just take it out of the freezer and start trying to work with it. So now it's a bit softer, a bit more malleable. So let's carve some ice, let's get to it. First of all, tools. This is an ice saw. If you want to get around the classic, the big problem with ice saws is super expensive. You know, you'll find them for hundreds and hundreds of pounds, euros, dollars, whatever. You can also use a hedge. They use similar saws for chopping branches off trees. What you really want, the main thing that you're looking for, is wide teeth. You want big gaps between the teeth on the saw. This means that it won't get clogged really easy. So if you try to use a regular wood saw, you're going to find it starts to just move up and down and it's not really doing anything. That's because little bits of water have got inside the teeth and they've frozen, and now you've just basically got ice on ice and you're just moving it around and you're not going to get much out of it. But if you've got wide teeth, that doesn't happen so fast. You might still have to tap it out, but generally wide teeth helps you a lot. I've got some more ice tools down here, which I'll show you in a second. But the first thing I'm going to do, if I was going to chop this whole block up, say I'm prepping for a shift or something like that, I would chop it all, and I would basically carve out like a grid pattern all over it, you know, exactly how I want it to be. But as I'm just demonstrating, I'm just going to kind of carve some blocks. So say I want like nice big blocks like this. I'm just going to first of all mark the line. Just use my hand like this just to... So, just got a nice line coming now. I'm not going to go all the way through. I'm just going to mark this line. And you can see I'm getting that ice in between the teeth, but because it's wide teeth, one tap and it's gone. So I can go through it like that. And then I'm going to go all the way around the block. And I can see the line through the other side, so I can just follow that. And one last one. Okay, so I've got a bit of a line there now. I'm just going to go again on this one, make it a little bit deeper. And then you can actually see, if you look through it, maybe you can see it on camera, is how deep I've gone. So I can see that I've gone through this deep. And maybe I see like a little, I can see here, I haven't gone quite as deep. So I can get back in there and I can use just to check. And now I can see I've gone deep enough on that side. I'm just going to flip it over again. Do a little bit more here. And that should be enough just to let the ice kind of know what I want from it. So I've created a weak point all the way around it. So now, if I come with my ice pick and my mallet, I should be able to just give it some light taps. And again, I'll do it this way so you can see. Now, if you can see on that camera, you should be able to see it kind of break through a little bit. Let's see if we can get that to happen. And then you've got this nice block here. It came through a little bit rounded. So the reason for that is I didn't cut quite deep enough, but that's not a problem. We've got enough ice, we've got what we wanted. So I can now do that again over here. And flip, and now it should be quicker. And flip. And flip. And last one. And flip. And now you shouldn't even really need the mallet, but so now we've got a nice big block. So this is just an example. So from here, we can do a few things. I can cut it into spears, which is just long straws. It's a bit short for that, so I'll use the other piece. I can cut it down even more, so it's not quite a square yet. It's a big block as well. So I might cut this down into a bit of a ball. So I'll show you how we make a ball using one of these. So if we want to start with a cube, so I'm just going to cut it down so that it's less of a rectangle and more of a cube. When it gets to this, the smaller the piece, the smaller the cuts have to be, basically. You just have to score it. Okay, so to make a bit of a ball, this isn't a perfect cube, but we get it started anyway. So to make a bit of a ball, what you want to do, the first thing you want to do is take corners off like this. Turn it around, aim for corners. And I aim to have like a little circle there, and then I spin. Little circle, just rough at this point. And again, I've got more corners up here. This is quite a big bit, so I'll take this off here. So I just took that big chunk off the top, and then again, corners. And I'm aiming for like just rough circles here. And then again, and then I can kind of just follow that around. I'm looking for little circles around this area here, and then I'm just going to keep making those circles a little bit smaller each time, and then you just kind of, you aim for things that aren't right for a ball shape, and you just kind of get a little bit used to it over time. And honestly, it doesn't have to be super perfect. When you actually put it into a drink, you'll find that it starts to appear more ball shape. Now you'll see that it's quite bumpy at this point, and this might seem like quite a lot of work, but I don't do this every day. If you practice this every day, there's bartenders that do this real quick. And you can see I've got kind of a rough ball shape there. Now, these bumpy bits, once you put them in a glass and you fill it up with liquid, these will kind of disappear. So just to give you an example of how they disappear, obviously this is not what you do in a bar, but just to show you how they start to wear away, and then you put it inside a glass. If it fits, 1 second. It only needs to fit in so much before you can actually get it to just sink in, because remember, it's gonna slowly melt a little bit anyway. So you only need it halfway in. And then once you pour a drink over the top of it, you'll end up with a nice ball, and all of those little bumps will disappear. So that's just an example of one thing you can do. Another thing you can do to get a ball shape, and it's going to be a much more perfect, quick ball shape, is you can use something like this. This is called an ice ball maker, really imaginative name. So to use this, take a nice big block of ice like this, and as long as it fits in here somehow, like this, that's good. And as long as I can get this bad boy on top. Now, what's happening here? Now, because it's really solid ice, this is going to take longer than it usually would if you just took a block of ice from the freezer, but it's going to be super clear when it's done. So what's happening is this is quite a heavy piece of metal, and metal is this is quite a warm, specific temperature. So it's just going to melt the ice. So nothing mechanical is happening here apart from weight of the metal and the specific temperature of the metal. Now obviously this is taking some time, but I can just leave this on a drip tray and I can start that before I start making a drink, and then, you know, whatever the drink is, boom, 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 start making the drink. I give it a little stir, and then when I'm ready, I get my glass out. Let's say I'll use this same glass maybe. I'll just empty this while that's going on. Okay, now this has been sat for a minute or two. We can see the big reveal. So let's see what we've got. Pull that off the top. And in here, we've got a nice, perfectly clear ball of ice. So if you did this with a piece of cloudy ice, of course it would be cloudy in the middle, it wouldn't be as beautiful. You can get these in different sizes. This one is not big enough for this glass, but you can see, like, you know, it's not the right size for the glass, but you can see it's super beautiful. Obviously, you can get a much bigger one of these and make a bigger ball of ice. So that's the ice side of the presentation. Let's talk about smoke. We are going to show you a few ways to smoke a drink, or to add smoke flavor to a drink. The first and probably most popular way is to use one of these bad boys. It's called a smoking gun. And for this, we're gonna need wood chips as well. So basically how this works, I pop some wood chips in the top here, and it has a little fan in the bottom, which sucks air in. I light the top, and then smoke will come out of the bottom here. So you can hear the fan just spinning around, and it pumps air through here and into here. Now with this, I can smoke in a few different things. So first of all, pop a little bit of some wood chips in the top. You can get different kinds of wood chips. You can get the ones that they give you with the machine, apple wood and a couple of other different kinds of wood, but basically anything works. They'll give off slightly different flavors for different kinds of wood. So we have our wood chips. Now for this next drink, well, the first time we're going to use this, I'm going to smoke a bottle. Now the cool thing about this is we can actually store smoke inside this bottle, and I can use it multiple times to smoke multiple different drinks. And I basically just got this as a flavoring agent on my bar ready to go. So it means I don't have to use this smoking gun every single time. So to do this, I'm going to take the lid off first of all. Keep that nice and close because you're going to need it. I'm going to get my blowtorch and light it and turn it on at the same time. Now you can see the bottle filling up with smoke. Once it's lit, well, the fan will keep the fire going. And you can see I'm really filling up that bottle with smoke. And you can see that because of the shape of the bottle, it's a great shape for a bottle of smoke, it's staying down the bottom there. Now, boom, off, lid goes on nice and quick, and we can put this away somewhere. I like to just keep that pipe nice and loose. Cool, so now I have a bottle of smoke that I can just store on my bar. That will sit there, you know, you don't want to keep it overnight because smoke actually goes stale and you don't really want stale smoke, that's not a nice thing. You kind of want the smoke to stay a little bit sweet. So now I can use this to make a drink and smoke it just normal. So I'm just going to make a regular old-fashioned, nothing crazy fancy. Take my stirring glass. I'm going to start with Angostura bitters, just a regular old-fashioned, 3 dashes. Bourbon. I'm using Bullet bourbon. I'm going to use 60 mils. And a little bit of sugar syrup. I would say no more than 10 mils, but personal taste. I'll probably do 7.5 or something like that. I like it a little bit dry. I'm making this for myself, by the way. So it's 3 dashes of bourbon, 3 dashes of Angostura. I did about 7.5 mils of sugar syrup. You know, people go anywhere from 5 to 15, and 60 mils of a good bourbon. Bullet is a great bourbon for this. And that's it. So keep it nice and simple. Ice her up. That should be fine. So we stir this. Again, stirring is all about the ice as well. So good to go back to the ice. It's going to depend how hard, how good quality your ice is, and how much dilution you want. That's why we stir. Your stirring is only about dilution and temperature change. So, you know, people say 15 to 20 stirs. It really depends what environment you're working in, what ice you're using, and how much dilution you want in the individual drink. So you can check this classic way. No, it's good, it's good, it's perfect. So what I'm going to do with this now, first of all, add just a touch more ice, and I'm going to grab a strainer. I'm going to strain it into the bottle. So, boom. You're going to see probably a bit of smoke be displaced, but that's okay, don't worry about that. And what this is going to do is it's going to smoke the liquid while it's inside the bottle. So you see I've got liquid and I've got smoke. I can put this down here. And the amount of time you leave it in there is going to dictate how much smokiness you've got in there. You can also give it a little bit of a swirl. This is you know, great for actually incorporating the two things, but it's also a little bit theatrical, you know, just to let people know, hey, I'm smoking your drink right now. Boom, put it there, and then you've got time to go get your glass and your ice and get ready. So, we have a nice glass straight from the freezer, and I also have my ice ball, and I can just go straight from the bottle now because it's already been made. Got a nice old-fashioned. Now the classic garnish for an old-fashioned is an orange zest, but I prefer it with a lemon zest personally, so that's what we're having today. So nice lemon, cut a little disc off just by pushing through it like this, and you put your finger on there, boom, done. Little disc like that, that's all you need. Now I'm just expressing the oils over the top, little swipe around, in, and serve. Smoked old-fashioned. All right, let's give this bad boy a taste. You can definitely smell the smoke. Yeah, comes through straight away. Lasts the whole way through the drink. You'd be surprised how much the smoke actually comes through in the drink. That's spot on. Okay, let's make another type of smoky drink, or another way to smoke a drink, just to show you the methods. We're gonna use another technique now. We're gonna make a sour using an Oban whiskey. So this Oban, it's from the southwest part of Scotland. It's kind of I would call it an oceany kind of Scotch whiskey. It's kind of a bit salty. It's not super smoky, but we're gonna add some extra smoke into the drink anyway. So we're gonna make a sour with this. Usually if you make a whiskey sour, you're generally gonna use a bourbon. This is gonna be a bit more delicate. So first thing we're gonna need, we're gonna shake this drink. So we We take a little bit of ice, again, the most important ingredient in the world, and we're just gonna keep this nice and cold. So all I'm doing here, this ice is not for shaking the drink, this is just to keep this cold while I make the drink. Take my jigger. I'm gonna do a nice, again, a simple recipe for a sour, 60, 30, 15, what we call a 4-to-1 ratio, so we'll use that. So 60 Scotch whiskey, in this case Oban, and I prefer, for this drink, what I would call like a coastal whiskey or an oceanside whiskey. It's got like a little bit of a saltiness to it, a savory nature. I've got fresh lemon juice here, and I just use my juicer. So I want 30 mils. Perfect. 30 mils, and we'll do 15 sugar. And then 1 egg white. So we just want the white here. What the egg white does is it helps to bring everything together. It creates a little bit of a foam and it ties everything together and makes it a little bit of a creamier drink. Some people are a little bit worried about egg white, and if you want a vegan alternative, the juice that you get inside a can of chickpeas is called aquafaba. Perfect alternative for egg white. So we've got in there all of our ingredients, except for our Angostura bitters, just to add a little bit of love to it. 3 dashes again. So that's our whiskey sour ready to go. First thing I'm going to do is what's called a dry shake. Dry shake means shake without ice. This is just to break up the egg, start the foam off, and make sure that the egg doesn't cling to the ice, because you don't want any actual egg white in there. So then we have and then a nice hard shake. See that nice foam? That's all coming from the egg white. Boom. And strainer. And I'm just going to fine strain it into this small shaker. You want to get it out of the ice as quickly as possible, really. Because once you started shaking especially, it's diluting. You've broken up the ice, it's going to keep diluting while it's sat in there. So by straining it all off, that means I've got a little bit more time to prep my glass. So I have that ready. Drop that down there, grab my glass. So straight from the freezer again. All I'm going to do just to start with is I'm going to take a nice clean cloth and just wipe off any liquid which might be on the side, just quickly. Now for this drink, it's a little bit of a twist. So cold glass, icing sugar. I'm just going to dust the outside of the glass, and the temperature of the glass will stick the icing sugar to the outside. I like to go a bit crazy with it. And then you end up with something like this. Pop that there, drink goes in, and we're yet to smoke it. Now with a foamy drink, you can fill it pretty much all the way to the top, because the foam kind of acts like, it stops it moving around like a regular thin liquid, and you'll add that layer of foam on top. So you can fill it all the way up. Now, how are we going to smoke this drink? I'm going to put it just on the bar top over here, and I'm going to grab my cloche. So this is another way just to smoke an entire drink. I put my cloche over the top like this. Grab my smoking gun, pop the nozzle through there, Grab my torch. Switch it on. Burn the wood. Let it do its thing. And it's filling everything up with smoke. Obviously this creates some mad vibes in the bar when you do it. And get rid of this. Now, the amount of time you leave it for, again, is going to add more smokiness to the drink, and that's going to work well with the slight saltiness in the whiskey. We pick it up, and you'll see the smoke disappear, and you can kind of just push it. And there we have a smoked sour. Okay. That smoke works so well with the saltiness of the Oban, and then you just get the sweetness on the outside. And the good thing about this rim is you can kind of choose how sweet you want it to be, because you've got all this powdered sugar on the side, and if you don't want too much, you can just kind of control how you drink it a little bit. But the smoke that's hit it, it's there, but it's very delicate, and then it plays with the saltiness of the Oban. So really like that drink. Super happy. Okay, so this next drink is not using any equipment really at all. It's just using a smoky spirit to add smoke. So two main spirits, I should say, that have smoke already built into the liquid: mezcal and a smoky whiskey, usually an Isla whiskey. The main reason we shake a drink, or the main drinks that we shake, are generally citrus drinks. That's to wake it up. We shake it to wake it, we say. So our mezcal drink, of course, has mezcal. So this is Ilegal Joven, which means it has a little bit of age, but not too much. 30 mils. We have an Ancho Reyes, which is an amazing chili liqueur. So it's got a little bit of spice to this as well. Kind of get a bit of a barbecue taste from this drink. So 30 mils again. We've got 30 mils mezcal, 30 mils Ancho Reyes, the red one, if you're wondering. So the reason we're using agave syrup is agave and mezcal both come from the same plant, an agave plant. And we like to say what grows together goes together. So 20 mils of agave. It's also a little bit healthier than sugar. Probably shouldn't live your whole life on it, but you know, it's in the right direction. So I do the agave first because it's quite sticky, and now I'm going to wash the jigger out almost with the lime juice. So 20 mils lime juice. Perfect. And that's everything that's going in the shaker. Now this ice I'm going to ditch because that was just for chilling. And we got fresh ice for shaking. Again, because my glass isn't right next to me, I just strain it straight into here. This time I'm not fine straining because I'm not going to serve it straight up. Get rid of that, that's ready. Highball glass. And actually what I'm going to do is just cut a piece of ice fresh for this glass. So back to the ice, this is part of the offcut that we had before. I'll just give this a little bit of a... So score the outsides. Don't even need to do the small size this time. Just straight through. On a board or something. So, perfect. Drink goes in. We top with some aloe vera juice, which I have here. So again, aloe vera juice is not exactly the same plant as agave, but it's very close to it genetically, and this was really well together. The chili and the smoke that I've got in there is being chilled out and being calmed down by the aloe vera juice. Very soothing drink, and all of that balances together and plays on the palate. So, boom, just a little bit of aloe, just to chill it out a little bit. Now, not a super beautiful drink on its own, so we're gonna tart it up a little bit. We're gonna give it some love. Over here I have some banana leaf. Now, this is, the leaf of the banana plant, and I'm just gonna stick it to the glass. First of all, I want a bamboo straw. I want that ready. I've got a little knife, I've got that ready. Now I want to stick this to the outside of the glass, so best way to do that is just run the tap and get it a little bit wet. In fact, I'm gonna just test it out first of all. Yeah, okay. So I don't need this much. Get rid of this. So I'm just running it under tap. That'll soften it up a little bit. Bit dry. Boom. Goes round the bottom like this. Wrap it all the way around. Like that. And then I'm going to fold it up like a little present. So in like this, just like you would for a Christmas present. We've got it like that. We just make a little slit in the side, like this, and this straw will hold it together. And there we have the hot tamale. So, I love this drink so much because when you're looking for a good drink, sometimes, or a lot of the time, you're looking for complexity. Now you've got chili and smoke and the cooling nature of the aloe and the fresh nature of the lime all working together, and it's all dancing around on the palate. I can barely talk. Amazing drink. So, I hope you enjoyed the webinar. This was just 3 of the many drinks that we make on our advanced bartender course. We also make a bunch of different things and we use different techniques. And that's just one of the courses here that we teach at European Bartender School, and something that me and my colleagues are really proud of. So thanks, and see you again next time.